Hi, everybody. This is a special kind of real McCoy podcast. It's not really a real McCoy podcast. Sort of somewhat jumbled in together. We'll call it a movie talk. Movie talk with Nick. Just Meffistoe and Nick. Nick was supposedly, be scheduled on various different podcasts along the way. You were here for a couple of them. You did Head of State with us, and you did Child's Play with us, me and my partner. Oh, no, well, Head of State, you were here with Drex, but
yes,
we try to schedule you for American Beauty, which we are going to discuss. We tried to get you for Falling Down, and was really close, so we got your replacement, which is Drex.
he's great for Falling Down, though. He loves that movie. I love that movie too, but he's great for it.
But we kind of talked about, we want to talk about Glengarry, Glen Ross, which is another movie you like very much. And I was like, I'm trying to fit it in. And on my end, I couldn't even fit it in. But then, life happens and things get combobulated. But now you're here. So we're going to talk mainly about these three movies. And if we have time, we'll bring in a fourth one. So, all right. First movie I want to talk to you about is Glengarry, Glen Ross. And I've got a little bit of notes here on the side just to get us off to a good start.
These are the new leads, the Glengarry leads. And to you, they're gold, but you don't get them. Because to give them to you would be throwing them away.
We're going to get to that. So David Mamet, who wrote a play, he basically wrote a play, was showing, I think it came out 83. And then it was based on him working at a real estate agency back in the 70s. Do you know which part he did?
Ooh, which part of the real estate agency did he? I'm going to guess he was Kevin Spacey.
He was
the office manager.
The office manager, correct.
Yeah.
Al Pacino was cast first for the role, and he saw Kevin Spacey at a New York off Broadway show, and he brought the director, James Foley, to actually go and watch him, and he was immediately invited and cast. The movie had a 3-week rehearsal stage and then 39 days of shooting, and they actually shot most of it in sequence, which is rare.
Very rare. That's also really I guess it's because it's written as a play, as a stage production, it makes sense to shoot it in sequence. But the 3-week rehearsal is remarkably short. Like that's a breakneck pace. And to hear that they did this type of the performances that were given in the movie, the play, whatever, the production by that cast are all phenomenal. There's not a single bad performance in there. And they really nailed it. So to hear that production window was that short on this, this quality,
very short. Yeah. Actually, Mamet extended. He took the play and he extended a few scenes and wrote it into the movie script. One of the scenes is Jack Lemmon talking to the hospital, and you can barely make out the information, but it's basically his daughter or his wife.
Yeah.
And he probably, it's not specifically, probably is working to pay off bills to make sure they, have her on, all that stuff.
You get the impression that whoever it is terminal or in very, very dire state, and that he desperately needs money to keep treatments going.
And the other scene, the Baldwin scene, the speech scene. And he wanted to have that as some sort of let's say an outside pressure.
Sure.
Make the characters work the way they did. So the motivation for them to do what they did in the movie came from that outside pressure from the company, as Morley and Morley, or
it's Mitch and Murray. It's from Mitch and Murray.
Murray, exactly. So his entire speech performance was inspired from George C. Scott's Patton from 1970. Um, Before they shot the speech, Baldwin was on set, but he kept everyone away. Like he didn't want to socialize. He didn't want to do anything. And his main reason to be in the movie is Al Pacino. He wanted to be like he wanted to make a movie with him and Al Pacino. Too bad he didn't have a single scene where Al Pacino was in the room. But it's Baldwin. Where was I? There. There was a point where they thought Al Pacino would maybe leave to do something else. And they thought about, well, just do a cast tweak. Baldwin was at one point was supposed to be the understudy to do the Roma role, and it would
Oh,
have
that would have
brought
been
else to do the speech.
terrible. He would not have pulled. I mean, well, maybe Baldwin could have pulled that role off. I think it would have been way different though.
Yeah,
Pacino, his subtle gravitas. It's Jonathan Pryce, right? Is who he's selling to. He's
it's something Leak, more Manny Leak. That's the character. It's
yeah.
Vincent Price, Sir Vincent Price.
Vincent Price. Yeah. But yeah, when he's selling to him, the subtle way that he does it is it's so great. And I don't see Baldwin being so subtle as like selling it so convincingly. But Pacino like sidles up, he's sitting there next to him at the bar, and he says this comment about how hot it is.
Yeah.
And how people are begging to like be put down or whatever because they can't, it's so warm. And it just, that starts this conversation, and it's this beautiful, like, perfection of a high level sales pitch, because, most people who have experience with sales are dealing with small consumer goods, or even like durable consumer goods, washers, dryers, fridges, stuff like that, furniture. But this is investment real estate. I mean, you are selling someone the idea that this piece of property will be worth significant money in a near enough future for you to realize a gain. And you're asking them to buy something that seems to be in a completely different state that they will never visit. It's like, and he's just like, look, I don't know if you're interested. Maybe you are, maybe you're not, but here we go. This is a farm that has this. And he just starts sliding it into this conversation. And
Later on, he kind of spreads out the Glengarry estate brochure.
Yeah,
Even he's trying to sell him something. He's trying to sell him like Rio Rancho or
Rio
something.
Rancho, yeah.
It was like,
but he
you're a sly motherfucker. That's what you are.
Yep, it's beautiful because he's sitting there just pitching him the whole time, but he has these great lines about, he's like, remember the great fucks you had. You wake up and your balls are like concrete. And it's like he's just talking to this random guy at a bar, building it in, and all of a sudden, I'm going to need like $70,000.
Yeah.
It's amazing. But it's like, I can't really picture Baldwin sliding into that sale the way that Pacino does. I feel like he'd come at it like a lot heavier. It would have been interesting to see like, an alternate take with him do it. They should do it now. Well,
maybe not.
Maybe not now.
I had a thing that I wrote here that was interesting. Lead or leads was said 83 times throughout the movie. They constantly talk about that. And if you don't know what leads is something that it's still is there in the world, but it's done so significantly different.
Right.
Leads is basically people who got randomly surveyed, and their either financial thing or their address and phone number was in the system, and it was sold like Facebook sells your information, like every single app that you have on your phone sells your information to somebody else. That becomes their lead for whatever ads, whatever you want to sell somebody. And this whole point about getting good leads versus bad leads, and the salespeople on the ground actually do know what a good lead is. They can quote unquote smell a good lead, and the fact that they go to the Indian part, the Indians. Oh, and they mention the fact that the Indian's name is Patel, which is it's not those Reds,
Yep.
it's not those Indians. It's the actual Indians from India, and like they're so rich, but they're not shilling out for this kind of investment. No way. Which was very interesting insight in 1992 because generally speaking, I have met some rich Indians over here. And they do tons of investments in land, which
Right.
is weird.
Well,
But
it's the the continued post-industrialization of India spreading from the major cities out, as it spreads out from the urban centers more into the greater India is it's like that's what we see now. But in the 90s, I mean, you would have had a way different perspective, and that's one of the hard things to. I was just talking to my son about this actually. This how different movies have to be or stories have to be now because every problem is solved with a cell phone. And so when you're looking, like you're talking about the difference in leads now. Well, leads now are like I type in one of the best shoes that Olympic runners use, and then for the next 2 weeks, every time I scroll through Instagram, I got Nike shoes popping up as an ad. Right, like because I searched for shoes one time, I'm getting shoe advertisements.
because the AI bots pick it up. It's not like a human being kind of the
Right.
cell information. It's all done so quickly where
But in
there
the
are people that said, and they don't use Siri or Alexa, and they don't have any Google stuff in their house, and they're like, honey, what's the new, I don't know, Toshiba, whatever sound
projector
system
or something, yeah.
whatever Philips projector that we thought about buying? And like you sit down by your PC or you turn on your TV and you switch to YouTube, and suddenly you've got a video, and
Targeted
projector
ads.
ad.
Yep.
It's like, what? What?
It's so effectively done. But in the 80s and 90s, these leads like were generated like they you get hints from the movie, but they're generated by people, like you said, people would fill out a survey, often in a magazine. And the quality of the lead often comes from the type of magazine that they would generate. You would want a lead from the Rob Report because the Rob Report is a magazine that would be read by people with means to buy very expensive things. Or you'd want a lead from Forbes, especially back in the 90s. Now, kind of the democratization of information, like most of these higher profile, higher income magazines that were about finances and investments, they've gone down to just reporting generally everything because it's all about clicks.
Yeah.
But back in the 80s and 90s, I mean, people who read Forbes, there were private jet ads in Forbes. So if you get people filling out surveys about being interested in investment property opportunities, these are people who are actually invested in that. But if you get one like a mailing list that includes name from 17 magazine subscribers, that's going to be complete dirt and absolutely worthless. But I love those little like temporal placements that we get in some of these movies that are really well written because they draw on that contemporary time frame so well. And Mamet does this just excellently in Glengarry. Everything is quintessentially in that era, in that world, and it sucks to work in that office.
down to there. It's so much like, how do you quintessential give an impression of people staying on their phone for hours and hours and hours? Is the phone with the plastic headrest that
Yep.
Len had, and he just use it on the side, and you don't have that because you either have like a
The headset.
headset or whatever it is, and it's just gone. But when you had an actual phone that you had to pick up and take and call everybody, and you had to have it on your head all day, then having a headrest just makes perfect sense. And
And it's the It's a
But
beautiful difference between another Kevin Spacey role, right? American Beauty, he is a magazine advertising salesman and he has the headset. And it's the difference in the office environments that is illustrated. I mean, these movies are just a couple years apart, right? American Beauty and
seven,
Glengarry Glen Ross. Oh, it's 7 years. Okay. But in
92 and 99.
right, I forget American Beauty was 99.
Yeah.
But when you've got these two environments though, you get a plastic headrest when your life and death is leads and commission sales. Whereas in an advertising office, they're going to be on the phone all day, but the advertising company is much more their investment in their workers is higher because the output is generated so differently. So like these guys in this real estate investment office, like Mitch and Murray don't care if these guys don't sell because they don't get paid. But that also means all they get is a phone with a piece of foam that sits on their shoulder. Whereas in the ad office, Kevin Spacey is salaried and may have some sort of bonus incentives or something like that. But he's going to get paid whether he sells or not, and they'll just have to fire him if he doesn't. But that means you're going to get a headset. And those little details about it just goes to show again this office of real estate sales it's the perfect picture of a high pressure sales force where 2% of the employees are going to be successful. 98% are going to fail. And of the 2%, and I mean across the entire industry, of the 2%, the top 20% of the 2% are going to generate 80% of the revenue for the entire company. And everybody else is going to be eating Campbell's soup every day. And like this just paints that picture of that despondent office. Sure, Pacino's in there making good money because he's a phenomenal salesman. And a phenomenal salesman will make good money anywhere that they are. But everybody else, man, they're barely getting by. They're in wrinkly suits that they've probably worn 3 to 4 days in a row, or they just put on the same jacket every day when they get to work if they have to go out. I think there's even a scene where they're like, Lemon grabs his jacket off the coat rack. It's like, that jacket just hangs there every day. And when he gets to a sit, because he calls and calls and calls, and he finally gets invited out to someone's house or to meet them at a restaurant or something. Then he puts on the jacket and goes. Otherwise, it just sits there collecting dust in the office. And those little details are just, I love it.
There's one thing that kind of surprised me because I haven't watched the movie in a very long time, and I watched it yesterday once, and I watched it today again. The one thing that got stuck in my head is, how do you know Roma is like the top salesman? How do you know Al Pacino is the top salesman? It's not the name of the top of the board. It's the fact that he's the only guy who has a cell phone at the beginning. 92, 91, 92. It's like the beginning of, this is getting commercial. It's not the big block thing that they had in the 80s. So to get
it cost a fortune.
Yeah, but it's a fucking cell phone. That means Roma is doing good enough business to keep that phone. But I want to talk about this.
Yeah.
I've put it on because, to be honest, it is the best part of the movie.
It's so good.
It's the best part of the movie. And it goes to show that, the only bad thing about EV Mux, this website, is the fact that their dynamic stuff is not as smooth.
Not as smooth.
Yeah, there's a different way of making stuff very smooth. It's just that on the recording part, it's a little bit different. Never mind. That speech, I'm going to call it the winner speech, and I'll tell you why. Because I recently rewatched The Last Dance about Michael Jordan's last season, or the Bulls' last season, and going throughout the history back and forth. And the one thing that is parallel to this, especially this speech, is the fact that winners are not necessarily friendly or social. They're here. Their only job is to close deals. Mm-hmm. And this is one of the points where I don't remember the name of Alec Baldwin's character. I really don't.
I don't know. Fuck you. That's my name.
That's my name. That attitude of coming in. It's like, You came in. You came in with a Hyundai. I'm driving a BMW. And also, later on, he's like, "Do you see this watch? This
This
watch is
watch.
like your entire
This
year."
watch costs more than your car.
Yeah, it's like,
That's who I am, and you are nothing. It's like, oh God, poor Ed Harris.
yeah,
And Ed Harris is the number 2 guy in the office. That's,
exactly.
and he's like, nope, nope, because a loser is a loser. Oh God, it's great. That scene is so good.
And to top it all off, like, is him going around his own briefcase. He's got the briefcase open. He's going around telling. He's even at one point takes off the watch when he talks about it, puts it in front of Moss, in front of Ed Harris's character, and he walks away. And I was like, half thinking, does he steal that watch or not? Because there's no way. There's no way. He put it there for him to look at it. It's like, you can't touch this.
Yep.
Like MC Hammer style. And he goes around the room, and then he goes behind the briefcase, and he's like, to sell something, you need something extra. And he goes around, is like, you need brass balls. And he's got a couple of brass balls.
You're like, oh, come on.
It's like,
Of course, you're the asshole with a pair of balls in your briefcase.
oh, and like, he prepared this speech in advance. He knew exactly, in going into that room, knew exactly what he was going to say, who he was going to say it to, and it didn't really matter who's in the room because they're all losers.
Yep.
And I'm here to like beat them into submission and make them play better. And I'm saying play because it is the same attitude that Michael Jordan had, and everybody called him an asshole, except for the people who actually really wanted to win. People like Steve Kerr. And he's like, yeah, we had an altercation, but then I got where he's coming from. And then on end, it's like smooth sailing because I wanted to win a championship. He wanted to win a championship. We're going to win a championship. And this is exactly this speech. She was like, you need to close. There's nothing else besides the close.
And he nails Jack Lemmon subtly in the speech
coffee.
when he says, well, the coffee, but he says, oh, nice husband. Good. Go home to your wife. Oh, good father. Fuck you. Go home and play with your kids. If you want to work here, close. It's like, we don't care about your excuses. And that's the thing. This is commission sales. The commission sales, there is no padding. There is no excuse. You sell and you make money, or you don't sell and you hit the fucking street. Get out. We don't have time for you. And you don't have time to be here. I worked commission sales. I was the worst salesman on the planet. I am terrible at it. And I told every employer, I'm like, don't put me in commission sales. I'm awful. I won't ever do it. But my boss was always just like, why don't you sell? I'm like, because I don't care. And he's like, then get out. Like, why are you here? If you're not going to do it, if you're not going to put in the work, you're not going to make the money. So like, why even bother? Like, you don't need to be here. He's like, you have to want to sell stuff. And I was like, I just kind of want to hang around computer. I worked at Circuit City. I'm like, I just kind of want to hang around computers, get a discount. Really. But it was like, and that's the thing, like you're saying, it's like, no, we want you to play, because if you play, management pays you because management gets paid. I didn't interview for the job. It was, there's a weird job that was available, and it was more like a presentation of, do you want the challenge? It wasn't much of an interview process. It was, are you a criminal? And if not, you could get the job. But the job was selling news stories to newspapers. So this is a surreptitious advertisement. Okay. So let's say you have a dishwasher that tackles some sort of special dish problem. What you would do is that dishwasher company, like Whirlpool, for example, would want to sell this new dishwasher technology. So what you would do is pitch to a magazine or a newspaper, whatever, a news story about this product, like about this feature.
Oh, I get it.
like some old woman utilizing this feature to better scrub the china, like to preserve her china, something stupid like that, right?
Yeah.
And that was the entirety of the job, was pitching fake news stories, which were just disguised ads to magazines. And I remember this guy, he was talking about the top salesman in the office there made 7 figures a year. They made 7 figures selling these ads. And he goes, I would love to hire another person and pay them 500,000, $1 million a year. I would love that, because when they make that money, I'm making my cut above that. So
Yeah.
he's like, that's who we want. We want you got to be out there. You got to develop all these relationships with these different, with journalists and stuff like that. Cause you're literally pitching news stories to them all the time. I didn't take the job because it sounded horrible, but it was this really interesting look into sales. He's like, all of you in this room, likely, if you take the job, I will hire every one of you. You'll all fail is the most likely outcome. You want to try it, go ahead. We're not going to pay you if you don't sell, so it doesn't matter to us. But if you succeed, I can give you a life you've never seen. It's really similar to the speech in Boiler Room. That
Yes.
if you've seen that with
Yeah,
it's
I've seen it a
an
long
Affleck
time ago,
speech.
but I know exactly what you mean.
It's like, I'll make you a millionaire in 2 years, something like that. You give me. It's like, you give me 6 months or something, and you'll be a millionaire in 2 years. But you're gonna fail, and I'm gonna fire you. Fuck off. And that's the exact impression. That's, again, this office is so reminiscent of that environment. It's like, if you're Roma, you don't even have to show up for meetings, because Roma's closing deals at the bar across the street. Nobody cares if Roma shows up. Alec Baldwin doesn't need to motivate Roma. He's got 90 grand on the sales board already. He's about to close the deal with Vincent Price. And like, it's going to be another huge
Vincent
thing.
Price. Vincent Price. It's it's my mistake.
Jonathan Price.
Vincent Price.
Yeah,
Vincent
okay, I thought so.
the scary guy from the Thriller, the Thriller laugh guy, the Edward Scissorhands, the guy who built Edward Scissorhands, basically.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, so I thought it was Jonathan Price. He was in like Everwood and stuff like that. But he's I love that actor. I love all the actors in this movie. Like, the cast is perfect.
It's literally, if you look at the list, it's not a long list. Alan Arkin, Ed Harris, Al Pacino, Jack Lemmon, Kevin Spacey, a young Kevin Spacey, but you could tell it's Kevin Spacey, Alec Baldwin, and a bunch of like side characters. There's the guy who Jack Lemmon literally haunts. He goes into his house trying to have a sales pitch, and the guy's like, he wants to get him out of the house, but he's so nice. So, and you do, I think Glengarry is supposed to be in like in Florida, or I think
so.
Roma says it at one point, but it's very subtle.
Rio Rancho's like in Arizona, I think, and I don't know where the Glen Ross farms are.
I have no idea. They talk about Arizona every once in a while, but you don't have a sense of where you are in America, really. Jack Lemmon's character, Shelley.
Yes.
Shelley. He's like, yeah, I have to go on a plane to Arizona. It's like, I have to close this deal right now because I'm leaving. And there's always that, if you know anything about like remedial advertising, if you ever took it in college, is very interesting how to create FOMO, or create a sense of urgency that, we're like, there's a deal right now. 5 minutes later, there's not going to be any deal. It's sort of putting people in that condition of, I have to buy it now. Otherwise, I'm going to miss a really good deal. That sort of urgency is there throughout the movie, with basically every time you hear a sales pitch. And the only two guys you don't actually see getting any kind of sales pitch is Moss, Ed Harris's character, and Alan Arkin's character.
Right.
The only two guys who actually try to do a hustle is them, and Ed Harris and Alan Arkin have their sort of side quest, side adventure thing, where Ed Harris is literally, his sales pitch is to get Alan Arkin on this break-in deal.
Yeah.
We learn later that he already did with Jack Lemmon. They already planned it out. They knew what they were doing. They knew how they're gonna, how they're gonna do it, and have Jack Lemmon go to this weird couple to try and get them the sale, where he didn't even know they're weird and crazy, and they would have signed anything he put his contract on.
Yeah,
Which-
and I love that when Kevin Spacey hits him with that,
yeah.
and he's like, and oh man, that's like the most heartbreaking scene at the same time because Jack Lemmon's like, why? And he goes, because Shelley, I just don't like you. And it's like, oh God, like this man's entire world hinged on these sales. Like everything is like that character. Everything matters in this sale that he gets. The impossible sale. Shelley the machine is back. Sheldon Levine, right? Yeah,
Sheldon Levine, yeah.
Sheldon Levine, the machine.
Roma calls him Shelley all the time.
Yeah, well, and you can tell like Roma learned his craft from Jack Lemmon. And so
they even have a little bit of a conversation. It's like, oh, these kids don't know you've been doing this for a while, and this is how you do it, and all that stuff. Just before the Mr. Leak comes back and wants his money back.
Yeah, and so like Roma like learned under, so you get the impression that Jack used to be a really good salesman. He's finally got it back. He's like, yeah, back in the groove. I got it. I still got it. And then you find out like they just like talking to salesmen. And it's Kevin Spacey looks like such an asshole. He's so smug and it's perfectly done. Oh, it's juicy because you watch his soul just die.
Yeah, it literally came like a few moments or like 5 minutes after Jack Lemmon was talking to Al Pacino, describing this entire sale while Roma is trying to keep this guy, Leak, from not canceling this deal. So he's juggling between actually trying to listen to Jack Lemmon's story because he's fascinated with the sale, with the art of the sale, and yet he needs to hold this deal together because he wants the Cadillac. Everybody's up for the Cadillac, not only the commission but also a new car,
Cadillac Eldorado.
Because you don't want the stinky steak knives.
Third prize is you're fired.
It's so crazy. It's like first prize car, second prize steak knives, third place you're fucking fired, all of you.
Yeah. Oh, do I have your attention now?
Yeah,
it's just great
because that's the entire speech, and that is that outside pressure that pushes them over the edge to actually do the break-in. Otherwise, there's no other. There's usual life pressures, but not up to the point where we're stealing these new leads because this is just the holy grail or the golden fleece or whatever it is. They hold it at that high of a regard.
Yep, and they all know that getting the sales required to get the new leads is basically impossible because they've all been handed junk. So they know they have to get them some way. But what I love about it is like the sales. I mean, the sales pitch happens all through it, and the sense of urgency that you're talking about, that false urgency or the FOMO that happens, even like that's what they're doing with the leads to the salesman at the same time. The salesmen are getting worked, the salesmen are working the customers, the salesmen are working each other, and then when Jonathan Price comes in to like retract his deal, because there's a law on real estate transactions, you have 3 days to just pull out of it, and so he comes in to do it, and then Shelley and Jack Lemmon and Al Pacino, they go to work. They're immediately like they're in this thing where they're playing back and forth off each other, and Jack Lemmon is just doing him a solid to help him keep this. He's like, oh yeah, and they're working on it. And then Kevin Spacey comes in and just screws it up because he hears the wrong thing, and it's the perfect like salesman versus sales manager interaction because he said what Al Pacino says, you fairy, you never open your mouth until you know the score. And he just excoriates him. He's like, "You're a manager. You're not one of us. You're not one of the salespeople, and you just screwed it up because you didn't know when to keep your mouth shut. I need you to say the opposite thing, not that thing. How dare you, you idiot!" And it's this. I got like, again, Mamet knew this so well. He reminds me of like Palahniuk, Chuck Palahniuk, who wrote Fight Club. And he wrote this book called Stranger Than Fiction, which is like him driving taxi for years, collecting all these different stories. And then he wrote them down. And it's like when these people with these life experiences that know them intimately and can translate that, Mamet does that with this office scene so perfectly. And it's just, he nails all the tensions. It's so good.
That means he has been in a situation like this. Where he just either said too much or said something that you shouldn't in front of a client. And then something happens. And when the client left, the salesman was like, "You motherfucker, you just ruined a X amount of deal for me."
Yep.
Yeah, you can see that situation in real life. And that's why I think even if I wasn't really a salesman, I sold stuff like a magazine for 3 weeks, and I never sold a one. I was supposed to like sell a subscription to a magazine for like a different life or like
God,
that holistic life or whatever. It was sucked so bad because I didn't believe in the product. So I was an effectual bad salesman because A, I didn't believe in the product, and B, I wasn't willing to lie, which is every single good salesman that I have ever met was a scumbag.
yes.
Because it takes a bit of, I don't know, dissociative kind of gene in you to like literally be a part or a full-on sociopath that you don't care about people whatsoever. So you can sell crap to a manure provider or whatever. It's so insane. I've seen these people, and those people who make the 7 figures are the Baldwins. So that Baldwin, the fuck you, that's my name guy.
They're not Alan Arkin.
Have a fucking Rolex because I'm a full-on sociopath, and I will sell a fucking phone to the phone company.
He has this great line in his speech, and it reminded me of my Circuit City days. They would hit us with this stat: 95% of the people who walk through that door walk out with a purchase. And Alec Baldwin says it this way in the middle of his speech. He says, "No one steps foot on the lot unless they mean to buy. Close. It's what they're the salesman's first task, like you're saying, you don't believe in the product. The salesman's first task is to sell themselves. They
Yes.
have to sell themselves on the idea that the product is desirable by the customer, that the customer's intention is to buy the product if they're even asking. Why would they fill out this survey if they don't intend to buy? If they say they want to buy it and you can't get it to them, that's your fault, not theirs. And that's the attitude you have to have as a salesman. And that's a really hard thing for people to do. It was always a hard thing for me to do. It was like, but what if they're buying something that's garbage? And the attitude you have to have is, I don't care if what they're buying is garbage because they want the garbage. They're asking for the garbage. My job is to put the garbage in the trunk of their car so they can take it home. It's not to tell them that the garbage that they want is garbage. Why would I do that? Yeah. And because it's like, well, because I care. But for the salesman and for Alec Baldwin, he's like, no one steps on the lot unless they want to buy it. So they're there to buy it. You sell it to them. They're wanting to buy investment real estate. Tell them why this is their investment and sell it. And most of the guys in the office, you can tell Alan Arkin can't sell shit to anybody. He's in the wrong business. Yeah, Moss definitely can sell stuff. He doesn't get good leads. Maybe he's just had a bad run. He's got some money on the board. And actually in 93, having 22 grand on the board is probably quite a bit. But he's sitting there like he can make it happen, but he's a scumbag. We know that Moss is a scumbag. Pacino seems like he's got the sociopathic tendency, but he's not like a scumbag. He's just the salesman. He's the consummate salesman. He'll sell it to you. When you try and take the sale away from him, That's when the scumbag comes out. Like,
He-
oh, you've seen my book. We can't do this. You've seen my book. I'm booked out for 3 days. How can we make this happen?
Yeah,
Pretty easily.
this is what I said when it comes to being a scumbag. This is what you see the awful, shitty person that he is when things just go awry. When he's on his spiel, sort of it's that salesman spiel. He can sell, it's the same way of selling a car or a lot or something like big, not just an appliance, but something like really big that you normally would, if you're married, you would definitely talk to your wife, or if you're a woman, talk to your husband, because if you don't have a joint checking account, you at least have a savings account of some sort as your nest egg for your retirement. This
Right.
is like retirement money involvement or investment that they're trying to sell here. And when he does that, he works the tactic and everything kind of seems fine. And he's not really trying to sell you stuff, but you really need it. But then when things go awry, that's like you said, the scumbag comes out, the scrupulousness of a salesman comes out, and he does everything to avoid the cancellation. Everything.
He does.
Including trying not to be there.
And to give a little bit of deference to the salesman, one of the things that and this is how the salesman will justify it to themselves, but one of the things that they do is, people do get a little buyer's remorse. That doesn't mean that the purchase was bad.
Yeah.
Right? Like all of the reasons that Jonathan Price had to buy the investment property, to make the investment, those reasons were all theoretically in existence. And this is what Al Pacino's character has to have in mind, right? No, you made the decision. Now you're trying to back out because you talked to your wife. She's a little scared. You don't know. You just invested all this money, like kind of on a whim at a bar to some random guy who's talking about balls being concrete. And it's like, you did all this and now you've got the jitters, but the sale was like the purchase was still good. The investment was still right. And that's the mindset that they have to have. Like you and I, we're a little bit maybe more empathetic. And so we're like, that's a little sociopathic. But you can actually give some credit to the salesman of saying that's them just still overcoming the same objections that they had already overcome. Like those jitters come back and they're like, yeah, but this is still going to be good for you. If you cancel it now, it's going to be bad. And I actually, I worked in a financial office in 2008, actually in the back office during the mortgage collapse. And it was crazy because I didn't work on the phones. I was the support staff who would fix all the problems. But the phone people had to take all those calls from everybody the morning of the mortgage collapse. And these people's, their stock portfolios plummet. And they're like trying to withdraw the money. And you've got these licensed financial advisors on the phone literally crying, telling people, please don't take the money out. Don't take the money out. Not because of the company, but if you take it now, you lose. You got to wait for the rebound. The market's going to come back. The market's going to come back. But if you take the money out now, you actually lose. If you wait, you can recoup at least some of it. And people were so scared that they're sitting there still pulling the money out. And it's like, you're actually harming yourself. And so there is that role. Like if you do this, you're missing out on this investment. It's not quite the same because in this one, like literally the market is going to rebound within a week, at least to like 50%. It's going to make a rebound. It's going to be a long road back. But ultimately, if you took your money out in 2008 on the day of the mortgage crisis, you lost a huge portion of your portfolio. If you waited 2 years to take your money, you made money. The market rebounded that hard. And so it's like watching that happen. That's the salesman's dilemma and Pacino's character. If we're going to be sympathetic at all to Pacino's character here, you got to remember, like, he believes in this investment. He sold himself that this investment property is good for him to sell to people. And so he has to think, I got to get this guy past this 3 days for his own good. Cause he's being a dummy right now. He's listening to his wife. Why would anyone do that?
Yeah. when, like we said, when it kind of turns and Kevin Spacey kind of ruins everything for him, he is completely livid because it kind of contradicts the whole point of the sale. And it really doesn't matter what he sold. It's like, you ruined my sale. You ruined stuff that I do.
Yep.
And you're doing this with your stupid bureaucracy stuff. And I thought about it because at the second time I saw it today, I did, after he talked to Jack Lemmon, I don't know if he did it on purpose because he was hearing what was happening outside of his office. I don't know if he did it to Roma on purpose or he did it by accident. And we don't know. We don't get an answer to this. But what if he did it on purpose because he wanted to fuck over Roma for whatever reason?
He might have.
Know.
Yeah, he might have. I mean, that's the thing. He might have wanted to screw over Roma. He might have felt like there could have been a personality conflict with egos going on. Roma's a good salesman. You're the office manager because you couldn't cut it as a salesman. I think Roma even says that you couldn't cut it in this world, so you're just the manager or whatever. So he might have done that. The thing I was kind of thinking right now is, so Ed Harris, at the end with the break-in, Jack Lemmon gets tagged, right? Like he's going to jail.
Oh yeah.
Ed Harris makes a big display about the thing. He's like, I'm going to lunch. No, I'm going on vacation, blah, blah, blah. But it's so performative and so loud. And I always thought of it at first as he was just so guilty in the thing. What if, though? What if Kevin Spacey got Ed Harris to involve Shelley? That this was all, like, not only was the bad sales a conspiracy, but it was so deep that his dislike of Shelley that Ed Harris wasn't going to jail because the way they set this up was just to dump it on Sheldon Levine.
You know what? That's a valid theory because I didn't even think about it, but it sounds legit.
Because Ed Harris gets to leave. Like he leaves, like after his interrogation, he leaves. He's angry. But we know Ed Harris didn't actually do the break-in. He was going to get Alan Arkin to do it or Sheldon Levine to do it. Alan Arkin is the chaff of the office. He needs to go anyway. Not because he's like a bad guy, but just because he's never going to sell any real estate. So he can get out.
Know he was getting worked, and then Moss kind of flips on him in terms of, yeah, I just told you the plan. So if you tell anybody, I'm going to just say it's you. And it's like, wait a minute. If I don't tell anybody, I'm the patsy. But if I do tell anybody, I'm still the patsy. So It's like he locked him in a catch-22 and he didn't even know it. And that's why Moss was second on that board, because he wasn't as good as Roma, but it was better than anybody else there.
You get the impression that among scumbags, Moss is the bigger scumbag. He's chief scumbag.
Yeah.
And it's great. But yeah, so Arkin has to go anyway. He's going to get fired. Doesn't matter. And maybe that's the way of him getting Arkin in on getting Sheldon Levine in on the break-in as well, that they can pin this all on him. They got to get this old guy out of the office. He's too cocky and arrogant. He's a has-been. He's taking leads that they could use and he's screwing them up because now he's focused on his stupid kid or his stupid wife or whoever's in the hospital. And you'll see that. Well, I mean, at least you would. Back in the 90s in Salesforce, literally it's like, we don't care about your excuses. We really don't care why you're not selling. You're not selling and you're dragging the department numbers down. You're dragging the office numbers down. You're taking leads and throwing them away. And that's
you're making it look bad.
Well, and it's a telling line by Alec Baldwin. He says, Mitch and Murray paid good money for those leads. Those are good leads. But then when he talks about the Glengarry leads, he says to give them to you would be just throwing them away. But they do pay for those leads. They invest in those things. And so if you send a salesman out and he screws it up, I mean, at some point they are they're throwing away opportunities that another salesman theoretically could have closed the deal on. So getting Levine, I'm sorry that you've got a family member in the hospital and you're really worried about it, and it's causing you to not be able to sell as well as you used to. But you're not selling as well as you used to, and I could have closed that deal. And why can't you? Now I've got this crap lead, and you've got a good one. He's got to go. And it could have interestingly been an entire plot involving everybody except Roma to get Levine out of the office.
Yeah. And I actually remembered why I like this movie. First of all, the writing is fucking excellent. Characterization, everything's great. I like the fact that it kind of starts and ends sort of like you had a window to these people's lives for about 24 hours, and there's no real start to the thing, and there's no real end to the thing. Because you don't see Levine getting arrested. You don't get to like intro it out. There's no like scroll or whatever coming up or something on screen telling you the start of the story. It just starts. You get a little bit of like people just talk. It's Jack Lemmon and Ed Harris talking on the phone to two different people, and it just goes into this, oh, we're going to have to go into this meeting. And it ends with nothing. It just ends.
Yep.
And you're like, what the hell is going on? The ending kind of leaves you with, I want to know what's going to happen next, but I know it's the end of this kind of story because we can tell what's going on. But yeah, it's a slice of life story. It's a very interesting thing, but I want to move to the next thing, and just tell me when you have to leave, because I wanted you to be on the show for this one, American Beauty.
Oh man, I love this movie
American
so much.
Beauty.
I watched it the other day too.
I've watched it a month ago as well, after we've done the show, and this is a little bit of stuff on American Beauty, just a tiny bit. Is Steven Spielberg read the script and pushed it. He read the script on a Saturday. On the Monday, he goes into Amblin Productions and he's like, okay, we're making this movie.
Wow.
I don't care. It's like, we're making this movie. Where else? Oh, the famous asparagus scene where Lester is like being annoyed and he picks up the asparagus bowl and he throws it into the wall. That was ad-libbed. That was completely Kevin Spacey. You know what the direction was? The direction is I want you to be mad, and I want you to do something that Annette Bening would not expect.
He nails it.
And he just nails it on the wall. So when they flinch, it's a real flinch. And that happens throughout the movie where Sam Mendes told Kevin Spacey to do things that Annette Bening would not expect at all. Like when they're on the couch and
Best scene. God, that's like one of the best scenes in the movie. It's so good.
Where he's like, who cares about this couch and this wine? We're about to like make up and make love on this couch. What the fuck do you care about this wine?
It's just a couch.
It's just a couch. So that whole scene, again, Kevin's reaction, Kevin's like going overboard was completely ad-libbed.
I wonder how much of that whole speech, because like when he moves in on her, I wonder how much of that, like where the ad-libbing starts, because it's so great. He stands up. He's like, where is that girl who used to run to the top of the apartment building to flash the news helicopter? And he gets close to her, and it's like, it is such a sexy scene. Like it is so intimate, and it is building towards like you said, they're rekindling. It's this moment where they have the opportunity to reconnect this loveless, sexless marriage, and he's right on top of her, and she is like, you can see it. Her, if she's acting that part, it's phenomenal. But she's just like, she's leaning back, and she's overwhelmed by Kevin Spacey's like rekindled masculinity, that husband energy that he's on her, and it's so close. And the only thing that trips it is he's got his beer and he tips it a little bit and it almost spills and it cuts it out of there. But like when he's on it, she's like, "There's lots about me that you don't know, Mr. Funny Man," or something like that. And then he's like, "Let's figure it out. Like, let's do this. Let's remember."
He was about to forget the fucking real estate king. He was about to forget all of her fucking shenanigans, all the fact that he's been cut out from the sex on her side, because he was reeling to go. He was fucking masturbating in the shower. He was reeling to go to like rekindle this whole thing. And what stopped it is her fucking being a Karen in the moment
a couch
that the spark kind of kindles everything back, and it just ruins it, and the dick kind of shrivels. All that.
It's such a kick in the teeth. But that scene is so like, it's so, God, the energy in it is so perfect. And that interaction where he is over her and she looks, that's why I'm now wondering where the ad-libbing begins. Like, how was the blocking actually having him so close? Because she looks simultaneously so uncomfortable, but so intrigued and enthralled in it. And it's like, man, if the writer envisioned that happening, then that writer needed every fucking award possible. But how they put that on screen is so good.
And it happens. The writer is Alan Ball. Alan Ball.
They won Best Screenplay, right? Didn't they?
I think so. I know
it won Best Picture
for writing. I just don't remember if it's for this or not. I just don't have it in these particular notes. One of the things, and I'm mentioning Alan Ball, is the Jim and Jim. The fact that they're nonchalant gay. He mentioned that the fact that there's a gay couple there, because Alan Ball is gay, he wanted to have a gay depiction in the movie. He wanted them to be married because there's no actual time of where this story is. It's not set in 1999. It's set in an amorphous time. And he said that by the time people are going to watch this, rewatch this, gay couples or gay married couples are going to be normalized. I just wanted them to be a boring couple, which they are completely a boring couple.
Yeah.
Right. They're not effectual to the story, just for the part that the guys coming into the neighborhood, the general or the former colonel, whatever he was.
Yeah, Colonel.
Had those guys running with Lester for him to make that connection. Oh, they're gay. They're obviously gay. He's running with them. He's probably gay with them. They're like threesome all over the place. And that dichotomy of them, we all know that they're just a blah couple, a boring couple. And the guy who's, skulking away and looking at these, I'm not going to say it. And he makes that connection of, Lester's gay and Lester's maybe hitting on my kid. And that's where the whole being a closeted homosexual coming out of it, that kind of gave him part way jealousy and part way I'm trying to hide this thing.
Right. Yeah, the tension in that character is it's excellently done. They did win Best Original Screenplay, so it won Best Picture. Kevin Spacey won Best Actor. Annette Bening was nominated for Best Actress. It was Erin Brockovich. Julia Roberts wins for Erin Brockovich that year. Best Director, Sam Mendes. Yeah, best writing, screenplay written directly for the screen. Best cinematography, nominated for best editing, and nominated for best music. But
Sounds about right.
absolutely crushed it at the Oscars.
Yeah.
Back when the Oscars were
I
cool.
have it written down because I had it. It's a note that I've copied from my other notes from the show. Is something that I saw it and I was like, oh, that's right. I remember this. This kind of reminds me of Dr. Disrespect in a way. Thora Birch was barely 17. Not technically, she was 16 and very close to 17 at the time of the shoot, where her parents had to give permission and consent for her to do the topless scene. It's not even a sex scene.
Right.
Sam Mendes was the one that was like, I don't know if we're gonna do this. I know I'm gonna clear everybody out, but it's not an 18-year-old. We have permission. Her dad was on set. That's awkward. Maybe her mom, I get it, but her dad was on set. Now, her dad is an adult film actor, or was.
Oh no.
70s.
He's like, nah, it's fine. It's just some titties.
It's all good. But Thora Birch
All through it.
was asked what made you do the scene, because it's not really, you don't really have to have that, because she is flirting with the guy next door, the film guy.
And you could have implied it.
You could have implied it. You could have had her in like just a bra. She said it was important for her to sort of emphasize her womanhood when it comes to like flirting with the boy next door.
Sure.
Because that whole dichotomy is in the movie, where her friend, the guy who Lester kind of lusts over, seems to be outgoing, and I slept with this guy and I did it with that guy, and then it's sort of, she's very outgoing and very sexually, or seems to be sexually active, and Thora Birch's character is very demure and sort of like virgin-esque, and then we come to realize, oh, this is all a facade.
Yep, it's all a lie.
It's all a lie. She's just as virgin as Thora Birch, but Thora has that moment of revealing herself just for a moment, just to give the signal, but it sparks off an understanding between her and the kid next door, the guy who films a bag rolling around the streets because he finds beauty in the bag. Which
the most maligned scene in movie history, I think.
Which is, to me, like, I love artsy fartsy stuff, but that's just taking it a little bit too far for me. But I get it. I get why it was there. It's just
it's like
in that position.
I think the eccentric ridiculousness of the like overemphasis of the arts in that scene. I think people miss it. I think people miss that they're mocking this. Like that is a mockery of like the over impressionistic artistic film student thing that's going on. And people are like, oh, this bag is so beautiful. It's like, no. Like it's inherently not. Robbie's life sucks. Like Robbie's life is shit so bad. And like that this moment in time mattered so much to him. It's not that it's actually like this beautiful, brilliant artistic piece. It's despondent and sad and terrible that this is the beauty he found, is a plastic bag caught up in a whirlwind where some buildings meet. Like that's embarrassing, because this kid, one of the most interesting characters in the movie to me is Robbie's mother. Robbie or Richie, I can't.
Jenny's character, she is haunting in that movie.
Yeah, I mean when she's like, I'm sorry, and so, I'm sorry for like being so loud or whatever, and he's like, Mom, nobody said anything. She's like, oh, and like she's just broken, and you can tell like there's the implication is that the husband is, one, obviously he's gay, Like he's gay, so there's no actual love connection between these two. She's now a duty for him to take care of because that's his obligation and that matters to him in his own personal code. But he does it without a shred of love, and he likely does it with a hefty dose of violence. And I think there may be a scene where she's got a bruise or two on her face. I feel like there is, but I was thinking
Maybe
back.
on the arm, but yeah.
I just watched this the other day, and I watched it on streaming, and I can't remember if they actually showed Thora Birch's breasts in
Yes.
in the streaming version that I just watched though.
Really?
I mean, I have it on DVD somewhere in storage. I don't have any, like, I have very few DVDs left in my house because they're a pain in the ass. But I have American Beauty. But when I watched it the other day, I just watched it on Amazon. And so I now don't remember if they actually showed it or if they cropped the scene to where it was actually implied nudity, because I just don't know.
I it's really hard to do it in via the VLC thing.
Yeah. I'll
Like now, it gets when I try to move a little bit forward and back to see where it is. I'm pretty sure the copy I have does have that scene. Well,
Yeah, I'm just wondering if Amazon does, because, you know, it would be pretty easy for Amazon to go into the streaming copy that they have and crop the scene to where it just shows, you know, like to her shoulders. Because I remember she takes off the bra, like that's clearly occurs
yeah,
in the shot, but I don't. I mean, I just watched this in the past 2 weeks, and it didn't stand out to me at all. They do have Mira Sorvino. I mean, they show her naked, like
yeah.
she's bare chested in the movie at the
She
end,
was about 22, 23 at the time, so
right?
it's not
And
a big issue.
everybody goes after like that scene and Kevin Spacey's, you know, lust over this girl, which I 100% agree is an inappropriate thing, but they always make it pedophilic. But her age in the movie is ambiguous. We don't really know how old they are.
I think we
Or she is.
discussed it when we did the show. It was definitely said they were seniors. So
Right.
it's not 16, it's 17 and above.
Right. Now
It's still problematic depending on which particular
state you're in.
you are in the US. And the implied relationship or the implied romance between Thora Birch's character and I don't remember who played Robbie, but he was the bad guy in Ghost Rider.
Yeah.
They're both the same age, so they're on the same level. So I don't think there's a statutory thing here.
Yeah, not with them.
They're not involved physically. Just it's like she sent him a nude pic on the phone.
And he's naked by her in the one scene.
Yes.
He's just hanging around naked. She's in her, like, in a sports bra type thing.
Yeah, but it's in his house and they don't have actual contact.
Right. But the interesting thing is, of course, everybody goes after Mina Suvari. I said Mira Sorvino. Mina Suvari, her character.
Sorvino is Paul Sorvino's daughter.
Right. Mina Suvari's character is the one that gets the attention because Kevin Spacey has an inappropriate attraction to his daughter's friend in high school, which is 100% inappropriate. That's, in my opinion, that's kind of a big part of the movie. That's
Her with
what
a bra, just to give the people and the thing. You can't crop this that much
right.
without I'm not going to put it on for a very long time because
No.
YouTube and stuff, but you can technically crop it, but it would be very obvious that you did. Yeah.
Right.
Go
And
on. Sorry.
it may not have been anything. I was just trying to think back. I was like, I don't even remember. It didn't occur to me at all. But the scene with it's interesting because you made a point, and this is part of American law regarding this stuff. Is Thora Birch's scene is non-sexual.
Yes.
I mean, she's sending a signal to the guy, obviously, like that has a sexual connotation, but the scene itself is not sexual. It's not portrayed in an evocative manner. It's rather non-evocative. It's very it's very plain. And that has to do, I would imagine, with the laws around this, is that the sort of test as to whether something is obscenity is, does it evoke the prurient interest? Does it create a sexual interest that outweighs its literary value? And so with Thora Birch, you say no, but the scene with Mina Suvari is very different. And the interesting thing about it is Mina Suvari, like you said, she's in her 20s. The actress is.
Yes.
But the character's age matters in these things because they can't. American law gets really complicated in here, where if you portray a character as a minor, even if they're not, but you portray them as a minor in a sexual situation, you start to run into the obscenity issues with CP or child sexual abuse material. And the reason is consistent with the reasoning that they used to create the laws in the first place. The idea is that the existence of the product creates the black market that drives demand and creates further exploitation of children. So even if an actress is, we'll say she's 18, but she's portrayed as a 15-year-old, she looks young, and it's communicated that she's underage, then you actually are running the risk of creating that material that would be illegal, even though the actress would be a legal age. And so I use this as evidence. I believe that Mina Savari's character is actually supposed to be 18.
I think maybe she is. But it's not.
It's always ambiguous.
It's very It's a sort of a thin veil. Plus, I think that even if she's portrayed as 17, it gets really close to an actual physical moment because she gets undressed. He's leaning over her, but he pulls back at the very last second where has that hesitation. Again, you never know with the MPAA where the line is actually drawn because it's very gray. There's a very gray area here. Plus, again, he doesn't follow through all the way through and gets to actual physical sort of even implied sex scene at that point.
Right.
But he does get to that edge. The Lester character is, for Kevin Spacey, you know why he got the Oscar. Because, and you mentioned that, and I distinctly remember this, about 2.5 years ago. 2.5? When was the Depp trial? 2 years ago? Maybe 2 years ago? You said that as a nonchalant because you were trying to give some sort of a point about men and how they're kind of have, why do men gravitate towards what's his face, the guy in Romania?
Oh, Andrew Tate.
Andrew Tate. Why do men gravitate to Andrew Tate? Because he doesn't. They don't mean to have his life, but they do want that freedom, that spirit of freedom. And you mentioned it, and it kind of clicked for me that I need to have that second watch because the thing that kind of emancipate Lester is the fact that he realizes, he's in front of his boss and he realizes something profound that, I can do whatever I want because I have leverage, because I've been here for so long and people think I'm just a small cog in this machine. But if I use this piece of information, it doesn't even have to be true. But I use it correctly and I twist it, I might find a bigger piece and I will use that as leverage. And he knows his way around the company's sort of finances to actually nail his boss on perceived fraud. And he gets him to, like, not only to pay him for a full year, but like not really get fired in a way that everybody else gets fired. And
Yeah, he gets severance. He gets out of it, and he's basically. I bet his wife would like to know about that expense trip, even if he can't get him on like company fraud. I bet his wife would like to know. And then, how about you, Brad?
yeah,
And the person I was watching this with pointed out the great actual twist of that exchange. He doesn't say that Brad would offer Kevin Spacey to keep his job if Kevin Spacey sucked off Brad. He says, if you, he's like, if I would let you suck me off. And
Yeah.
it's this interesting twist that gives this air of the absurdity leading to extra believability of the threat. Because, like, if Kevin Spacey goes out, he's like, oh, Brad offered to let me keep my job if I sucked his dick. Well, everybody would expect that accusation, but the sinister nature of flipping the roles makes the accusation more believable because it's less believable. And it's like that was just this brilliant little moment in the movie. And I was like, God, that I never noticed that before. But yeah, he says, if I would let you suck me up, that's what does it. And Brad is like, he knows, like, holy shit, that will get me.
yeah,
That will get me.
exactly. That realization of his boss's face is like, oh, he is complete. Like he's got
all
me.
in.
He's got me. I can't do anything. So he just. Then the scene cuts off, and Lester gets what he wants. You can see him going to his car, and he's happy, right? The part where he's singing in the car later on, ad-libbed. Sam Mendes told him to be happy in the car. And we kind of talked about it later on, where he starts to, coming a little bit coming out of his shell, where you kind of realize, yeah, he knew about the realty, the real estate king, or whatever he's called, the realtor king. He knew that it was going on, or he knew this is where it's going to go, because he knew his wife. So it's either implied that she's already done it, not with that specific guy, but with other people, or she's willing to do it because they're in a loveless marriage. But he's like, I'm going to give myself a try and try things that I wouldn't normally do. There's a moment where he looks at the Jim and Jim running, and he's looking outside. He kind of wishes he was there with them running. And then later on, he just does it by himself.
Yep.
He joins them, and then he splits off to do his own thing because he wants to be better physically, mentally. And that whole thing kind of brings him out. And one of those things is, I'm going to skirt the law here. And he meets Robbie, and Robbie sells them the dope. And they're both kind of scurrying off in that dinner party or the convention. And they smoke outside. And as the wife kind of comes back in, what are you doing? It's like, I'm here with Robbie. Like, what do you want? I'll get there when I get there. Hold the phone.
Yep.
Yes, you're going to bed? I'll be there soon.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go really soon here.
Yeah, no worries. We'll finish with this. We don't have to go to falling down.
And we can also we can do another one. I love talking movies. So,
No worries.
but one of the things I love that interplay of Robbie, because he is the freedom that Kevin Spacey's looking for. But the movie's so great because everything is image, and Annette Bening says it, Real Estate King says it, to be successful, you must project an image of success at all times. And everybody is projecting all these images. And the interesting thing about Lester is Lester drops all projections. He drops it all.
Yes.
There's no pretense left with him. But even Robbie is projecting. Thora Birch is projecting. Angela Hayes, Thora Birch's her friend, Mina Savari, she's projecting. Everybody's projecting the whole movie, except for Lester. And he's this is why I love this movie so much, is that he is the perfect image of what happens when you drop the pretense and projection and just try to live. And ultimately, at the end of the movie, he's punished for it because my contention is I believe the punishment is his transgression with Mina Suvari. I think that's the irredeemable act that he's stuck with, is that he, even though he tries to reel it back in, the inappropriateness of it is the punishment, but also the freedom that he finds throughout the movie is the punishment. Everybody must project, and that's the tragedy of American Beauty, is that the people who make it through are the people who still are projecting through their lives. And Kevin Spacey, when he tries to free himself of that restriction, that structure, he's dead.
I always thought it wasn't the transgression because I remembered him going through, again, haven't seen it in a while, and then coming back to it, and it was like, he was right at the edge. I get why he was punished because he had those, let's say, dark thoughts, but because there wasn't any realization, I don't see the punishment. The punishment comes from the fact that the people around him are so interlocked in their own projected image, especially the colonel, the ex-military guy,
Right.
who was really a closeted gay guy, who could not stand people being free. And those people who are free, who say their mind in real life, are usually those ones who really get punished. You say what you will about, let's call it on the internet, the people we know on the internet say their piece, being honest, saying their whatever spiel, and they get punished by demonetization, cancellation, all that stuff.
Every time.
It's the matter, every guy, and I'm not even saying names because everyone knows a guy or a gal that said the real shit and they got clipped. If you want a universal thing, Gina Carano is the best kind of a thing. It's not the fact that she's being free. It's the fact that they are speaking their mind truthfully, and the society around them cannot stand it. So they punish them, and they get either blinked out of existence, and in terms of internet, is they just demonetized, dethroned, cancel channel, whatever. Or when Twitter was Twitter, they just got nuked, and that's it.
The scariest thing to a society is, I'll say the man, but it's really the person who cuts the strings on their own marionette. And that's Falling Down, right? That's Michael Douglas's character in Falling Down. He no longer, it's always with the man nothing left to lose. Kevin Spacey makes himself the man with nothing left to lose.
Yes.
He creates that in a positive way for himself, but he puts himself in the same desperate situation where society around cannot deal with this. And I find it really interesting as I'm thinking about it now. The disconnect with Mina Suvari is so interesting because he's with it. He's going through this, and he does stop the transgression. But when does he stop? It's when he realizes that she is the projection. She for a while, and I'm just thinking about this. She projects the open, free from structure spirit. Like she embraces this slut or sort of slutty persona that and she does it. And his assumption is that she's truthful and that she simply isn't bound by it. And that's why he says that she couldn't be ordinary if she tried. Whereas Robbie sees right through her. And he's like, you're ordinary and you're boring and you know it. No one else knows it, but she knows it. And it's this great moment where Kevin Spacey thought he found someone else who was not Annette Bening. In every way, not Annette Bening. She's sexually charged. She's young versus old. She's honest versus a mask. And then he found out, no, it's just a mask.
Yeah.
It's just a mask. And now the whole image right before him just crumples. And immediately he's like, this is a kid.
And the dick shrivels just like on the couch.
He's like, this isn't this little sex genie. This is a well, kid or not, he's like, this is a child. This is this is not a mature person. This is just someone living in the same lie as everybody else. And he doesn't find that kindred spirit. And that's, it's interesting to me, like, as I'm saying this, because I hadn't thought of it that way. I hadn't thought about the projection being there for her, being the thing that really trips up Kevin Spacey. I mean, I always, because it's like, no, I'm a virgin. It's like, oh, he finds out she's a virgin. She's not like sexually involved. He doesn't want to be her first. I don't think that's even it at all. Because that's what I always saw. It's like, oh, he doesn't want to be her first and like ruin her in that way. It's like, no. She's not kindred with him. She's not open. She is
not. She's not the woman he built in his own mind.
She's a mask.
She's nothing.
Yeah. God, it just got way more depressing for me.
That's what I love about going back to old movies, even if they're not really old movies, and re-examining the story. And one of the things that came up was I literally last week did a show about Basic Instinct.
Great movie. God, so good.
I reviewed it as a review, as a single review, separate review on the channel. And the things when I was doing the show, kind of realized, when I was I was a teenager when it came out in 1992. I wanted to watch it for one reason.
Sharon Stone being naked.
Basically horniness,
Yep.
teen horniness. And then I watched it when I was about 22 or 23. Learned a bit more of the story. Didn't hold it in much regard. Still thought it was kind of a sleazy story. Rewatched it now in my 40s. Man, that's a great noir detective story.
Mm-hmm.
And just people need to re-examine it and just put the sex and the nudity apart. Okay, I get it. Fine. She wasn't even good looking. I'm not even joking. I know. I'm in a minority here.
Well, no, she's temporally good looking. I mean, she was good looking in that era.
Body. I mean body. She's not.
Right now I agree with you. But when she was doing it, I mean, that was the look. The Kardashians have literally warped how we view, mainstream beauty, in sort of the West. So, well, actually, the East and the West. Like how we view it is now lensed through these over accentuated curves that are built by surgeons in a very particular way, and you see that all over like Instagram. You see it all over, pop stars and pop culture. Women are shaping themselves around sort of this Kardashian-esque image. And it's not a photocopy, but it's real. Like you can get the themes,
Yeah.
But Sharon Stone looks way different than that. But back in the 90s, I mean, she was a banger, like complete, like A-list hottie actress. And so
her girlfriend in the movie has the same body type as her. Same bust, same curve, same length, same type of bleach blonde, sort of like I was a blonde when I was 17 years old. Now now I'm 32. I need an extra highlights in my hair.
Yeah.
Sharon Stone, she's a full-on blonde. Her girlfriend in this sort of a dirty blonde thing, so she had to add those highlights in. And it's the same look, but it's kind of photocopied. And I get it. I get it.
It's testament to some, like, this to me is the difference between an enjoyable movie and great movies. Basic Instinct is a great movie, but American Beauty is a great movie. But you need some life behind you to really be able to get into these, like to get into Lester Barnum, you have to go through some similar shit. You have to go through some really like mundane aspects of a relationship or kind of the fizzling out, and maybe even go through the rekindling to see what he's after. You have to go through maybe having a kid or two. You have to go through having just shit bosses, and knowing stuff about that should ensure the place that Kevin Spacey was able to get. But like for real people, it doesn't work out that way.
Yeah.
With Basic Instinct, you have to go through these things that Michael Douglas is implied to have gone through. He seemed to have a drinking problem. He seemed to have a drug problem that kind of took him away from what he was good at. What he's good at is being this great detective, but he got wrapped up in this other stuff and it pulled him out. And so like having some life behind you lets you get into like the dark and somber places that these characters start the movies in. Because Michael Douglas in Basic Instinct, he's like at the beginning of the movie, he's just coming back. He's been suspended. He's been out of commission.
Like not drinking for 3 months, not smoking 3 months, having therapy for 3 months. It's all wrapped up into being abstinent for something because he shot a couple of tourists that were getting in the way. And that's like not the first time. That's like the third time in 5 years. That's the whole point.
And he was probably on cocaine when he did it too.
Yeah, and the whole point is the fact that I appreciated not the fact that he was that character, but it's the whole setting up a noir story and a noir film, but it's also a Hitchcock kind of a film because it's shot like a Hitchcock movie and the story is told like a Hitchcock movie because of all the psychological shit in it.
And it's
Catherine Trammell woman is literally inflicting upon this poor detective. Plus, she's a Hitchcock blonde. It's all that. It's all that. But yeah, it's just maybe we'll get into it at a later time. I know you're short on time.
Just the one thing people need to know is if you don't understand film noir, the hallmark noir feature is that the protagonist is unwittingly dragged into antagonistic acts to as a mechanism to solve the conflict of the movie or the story. Michael Douglas, he like you said, he's abstinent for 3 months from substances. He's been on suspension. He's coming back. They're all like, "Are you sure you're ready to be back?" And he's like, "I'm ready. I'm ready to be back. I'm a good boy. Been doing the good things." And then that torment that's getting inflicted, the psychological torment that's hitting him this whole time, forces him into the bad things. It gets him back into these places. It gets him back into drinking. It gets him back into losing his temper, losing control of himself. And it's like, man, like this is the guy who's trying to get clean and the world is dragging him back, but he has to go there to solve the murder.
It's her. She is manipulating him. She's
so evil.
Literally working him for her own benefit, whether she is the murderess or not. And it's so good. All right, cool. Thank you, Nick, for joining me today. If we can schedule another thing and we can just talk about maybe Basic Instinct and Falling Down next time or something else that I'm going to come up with.
Chinatown. Have you done Chinatown? Great movie.
I haven't discussed it, so it's on the list. I've got so many. there's all on such stuff that we didn't, but yeah. I'll send you a full-on list. We can even talk about Tango and Cash because I
love that movie. God, it's so good.
Good.
You know what we have to do? One of my favorite movies, Piranha 3DD.
Oh, you bastard! I don't want to watch
perfect.
Movie.
It's a perfect movie. It knows exactly what it is, and it's unapologetic, and it's just a ride.
Oh my God. All right. I'll do it. You know, somebody literally, I'm trying to schedule somebody to do a Showgirls full on just me and him. Cause he's the only guy who's like, Showgirls, my favorite movie. It's like, are you certain about this?
You've got to tell me who this is.
Culture Casino.
I wouldn't say it's my favorite movie. I like it. I know it gets maligned a lot.
Another Verhoeven movie.
Paul Verhoeven is so good. The man's a genius.
All right. Until next time, for me, to you guys out there, to Nick, thank you for joining me today. And we'll see you next time. You're still here? It's over. Go home.